Today is Saturday, June 14th. We're taking a closer look at the massive military parade happening in the nation's capital today. It's being held to mark the Army's 250th anniversary. But the timing, the spectacle, and the political implications have sparked controversy. So what's really behind it? Today, we're getting analysis from Yvonne Chu, a visiting fellow at the think tank American Enterprise Institute. She's an expert on authoritarianism, defense strategy, and global justice, and has her PhD and master's in political science. She also teaches at the U.S. Naval War College and serves on the board of directors for the International Society for Military Ethics. Though she has made it clear, her views are her own. They do not represent those of the Naval College, Department of Navy, or the federal government in any way. Today, she's getting into the cost, the history, and the possible impact of today's big parade. Welcome to the Newsworthy Special Edition Saturday, when we sit down with a different expert or celebrity every Saturday to talk about something in the news. Don't forget to tune in every Monday through Friday for our regular episodes, when we provide all the day's news in just 10 minutes. It's fast, fair, fun, and on the go. I'm Erica Mandy. It's time for today's Special Edition Saturday. You ready? Let's do this. Yvonne Chu, thank you so much for joining us here on the Newsworthy.
Thanks for having me. I'm very happy to be here.
Can I just get your brief but overall take on this military parade happening on Saturday?
I think the parade could be a good opportunity for the military in some ways, but it is not the best opportunity. And I think there are a number of things about the circumstances that are a little unfortunate and actually don't really serve the military's interests, both the parade by itself and then, of course, in conjunction with other things that are going on in the country at the same time.
Yeah, so I want to dig into kind of both the pros and cons a little bit with you. But first, I'm curious, are you familiar at all with the kind of origin of this parade? I know President Trump has said he was inspired by France's Bastille Day celebrations in 2017. It's also meant to mark the Army's 250th anniversary here in the U.S., and the parade falls on the president's birthday. What do you think the motivation behind this is? And do you think that there is any valid reason to have it?
So, I mean, the Army had always intended to celebrate its 250th anniversary, but they had originally envisioned a much smaller celebration. They were going to do something bigger than they normally do because it was 250th, but they normally have their celebrations not on the National Mall. And so for the 250th, they thought, oh, well, maybe we'll do something a little bigger. We'll have it on the National Mall. It'll be easier for people to get to. But they were still planning for something quite small. The reporting I saw was that they thought there may be 300 people total, and that includes the personnel who are manning the event. And then on the other track, you have Trump, who had gone to this really impressive Bastille Day parade in France in 2017. And he was already primed for it because even before he entered office, the first time he was talking about parades and things. And he saw the French Bastille Day parade. He thought it was really amazing, and he wanted one of his own. And he said immediately, we want to do better. We want to one-up you on this one. And so these two things dovetailed, and this parade has now basically just took over the Army's celebration.
Supporters are saying this will increase enlistment for the military, boost military morale, garner public support, and potentially other benefits. So do you see potential for any of those things?
I don't know that there is a lot of potential. So in terms of recruitment, I know that's one of the main reasons that people have been supporting the parade. I'm not sure that a parade in and of itself is going to increase recruitment. If you're interested in recruitment, there are other things that might be more valuable. And and there are other military demonstrations, for example, things like the Blue Angels, the Thunderbirds, the Marines, silent drills. These are other civic rituals that people can partake in that actually demonstrate military professionalism and teamwork and the enormous skill that goes into being a part of the military. And I think those are things that are more inspiring. It doesn't mean you can't have those things as part of the parade, but the parade also involves just all this other stuff that has a lot of baggage, especially right now. I know that some veterans have been on a record saying, you know what, if you're going to spend $50 million on a parade, wouldn't it be better to find ways to support wounded vets, for example, or maybe don't cut the benefits to the VA and don't cut benefits to vets. Don't stop with all these cuts to the VA that are going on. So there are other ways of addressing morale. In terms of public support, I think this is tricky. If Trump really wanted a parade, I would have picked July 4th as the parade day. It is uncontroversial, right? One of the reasons people are skeptical of June 14th is that it happens to coincide with his birthday. And maybe just a coincidence, but it's a little weird, right? Given his history. And so why not July 4th? It's 3 weeks later. You're not losing a lot of time by it. And July 4th is uncontroversial. It's the founding of our country. It is something that everybody can get behind. It would also be an opportunity to involve other branches of the military. It wouldn't just be an Army thing, right? You could have an all-services parade. And then you could really focus on a civic celebration rather than a very specific military one.
Yeah, and to your point with the birthday, I mean, critics are calling this a dictator-style parade, even comparing it to parades held in Russia and China, for example. Do you think they have a point?
I think they don't have a point yet. A lot of cities have small parades all the time on various military occasions. So it's just these big giant ones that are pretty rare for us. And for the United States, it's after a major victory, such as the first Gulf War. We had a couple of big parades during the Cold War with, I think, Kennedy's inauguration and Eisenhower's inauguration. And so it's not unheard of, but there is something about liberal democracies and the civil military relations that makes people a little uncomfortable with just a lot of gratuitous display of military might. France is an interesting contrast, but in and of itself, it's not a big deal in the United States. And I don't think that this rises to the level of a Russian, North Korean authoritarian display. It will be interesting to see what Trump himself is actually doing during the parade. I know my understanding is that the Army's going to parachute in and then hand him a flag, and that seems fine.
And what is expected, just so we're clear, we're talking about military tanks going through the streets, right? So is that, when you're talking about the history of U.S. parades, is that a normal thing? And what do you expect it to look like?
So there'll be units from all over the world flying in. There will be troops marching. There'll be tanks. There will be various missile systems on display. There will be flyovers and people parachuting in. And so, yeah, just demonstrations of all the different parts of the Army. And then I think there's fireworks planned at the end.
There are some people just more neutral about it who say, like, it's just a parade. Let's not make a big deal out of it. What's your take on that?
Yeah, so I think this by itself is not cause for a 3-fire alarm. It's not that it's no big deal or that, oh my God, this is the first step towards fascism. I think this is something in between. The parade itself it'll be fun, it is expensive, and it'll be interesting. And I think that it's possible to enjoy the parade and to celebrate the things it's properly celebrating while also being concerned about the context in which this has been planned and the ways in which it might be exploited as part of a bigger political program of this administration.
Still ahead, how could deploying National Guard and Marine troops to U.S. cities impact the big military parade? And is the price tag of tens of millions of dollars for the parade worth it? That's coming up, but first, a break for our sponsors. The Newsworthy is brought to you by Honeylove. When I wear anything from Honeylove, I can instantly tell so much thought went into every aspect of the piece, from the feel to the function to the fashion. And for this summer, it's great to know they have lightweight, breathable options that offer support, style, and comfort. It came as no surprise for me to learn that Honeylove is an independent, female-founded brand that is intelligently designed by women who actually wear the products. Honeylove shapewear, for example, it's designed to move with you. No more pulling it down or up anytime you walk around. And if you've been listening for a while now, you also know that I adore Honeylove's leggings and loungewear. Treat yourself to the most comfortable and innovative bras, shapewear, and leggings on earth and save 20% off site-wide at honeylove.com/newsworthy. Use our exclusive link to get 20% off honeylove.com/newsworthy. After your purchase, they'll ask you where you heard about them, so please support our show and tell them we sent you. Experience the new standard in bras and more with Honeylove. The Newsworthy is also brought to you by Hiya Health. One easy way that I've found to make sure my kiddo is getting the nutrition he needs is with Hiya's children's vitamins. In fact, even before they became a sponsor, I was giving my son their best-selling children's vitamins and the Hiya probiotics already. Why? Well, most children's vitamins seem basically like candy in disguise, but not Hiya. Hiya has 0 sugar and 0 gummy junk. They're instead pediatrician-approved chewables that my son seriously looks forward to having every morning. Plus, I appreciate that every single batch is third-party tested for heavy metals and microbials in a qualified GMP-compliant lab using scientifically validated testing methods. Oh, and if you're tired of battling with your kids to eat their greens, Haya now has Kids Daily Greens Plus Superfoods. It's a chocolate-flavored greens powder designed specifically for kids, packed with more than 55 whole food ingredients to support brain power, development, and digestion. Just scoop, shake, and sip with milk or any non-dairy beverage for a delicious and nutritious boost your kids will actually enjoy. We've worked out a special deal with Haya for their best-selling children's vitamin. Receive 50% off your first order. Yeah, half off. To claim this deal, you must go to hayahealth.com/newsworthy. This deal is not available on their regular website, so go to HIYAHEALTH.com/newsworthy, hayahealth.com/newsworthy, and get your kids the full body nourishment they need to grow into healthy adults. Now back to my conversation with Yvonne Chu. What do you think the impact of the timing of this parade right after we saw this week the Trump administration deploying the National Guard and U.S. Marines to Los Angeles without California's request or approval, which in itself is pretty significant and rare. So what do you think, one, about that deployment to California, and also the timing of that next to this parade when there are at least some of the country feeling like too much military is being used already?
That is much, much more concerning than the parade. But it is, I think that then casts this parade in a serious light, that this is, again, just one piece of a much larger puzzle of trying to politicize the military. And I think it's unfortunate, right, that you could have had an innocuous celebration of the Army's achievements, and instead it is going to be overshadowed by this. And I think that there are probably people in the administration who didn't think about how they might contradict with each other. They actually probably thought that these two things were actually going to be working in tandem to promote the reputation of the military and the administration's personal political power.
And I am curious, have you gotten any sense from troops on the ground about how they're feeling about this parade? And I guess the deployment as well to California, to Los Angeles.
So retired military, they speak more freely, and there's a divide, right? There's a lot of disagreement, and their views of both the parade and the deployment to Los Angeles are mixed. They range the spectrum. For the troops themselves, they're much more circumspect. They're very professional. They're not going to want to talk about political things, and they're focused on their jobs. But the sense I get is that there is also a lot of mixed feelings about both these things. Some people do see it as a big opportunity. They get to travel somewhere, they get to show off and maybe interact with people, and that is a nice opportunity. But there are also concerns about whether or not this is the most efficient and effective thing that we could be doing with our time.
And let's talk a bit more about the cost. The high-end estimate is $45 million, with $16 million, is my understanding, for potential road damage from the heavy military vehicles. What's your take on that cost? And is it right for critics to say you're making cuts to federal government workers and programs while also spending on this parade? But on the flip side, could it be worth it to honor the military in this way? So what's your take on the ultimate cost?
So even if it is the maximum cost, that's chump change for the Pentagon. It's like a rounding error in the Pentagon's budget. The optics of it, however, are not great, especially given that the DoD's been told they need to cut 8% of the budget year on year for the next 5 years. And there are cuts to military benefits and all these things. So in reality, the cost is pretty insignificant, but it doesn't look good in the context of all these other things.
Do you think either internationally or at home that this at all could be seen as intimidation?
So internationally, no. I think a lot of countries have military parades, and the ones who don't probably would like to have them. So internationally, no. It's just a display of capabilities that everybody knows we have. Domestically, yeah, by itself, it is not particularly problematic, but in conjunction with now these other things. And now my understanding is the National Guard has been deployed not just to Los Angeles, but to a number of other cities around the U.S. as well. So domestically, it combines with that, I think, to send a concerning message. And I think actually the administration intends the deployment of the National Guard and the Marines to be intimidating, and a parade, in their mind, actually just reinforce that.
A final thought or takeaway for our audience as these things are continuing?
I think the parade is an opportunity for the American public to think about civil-military relations and how they actually relate to the military, what they actually want from the military, and what they actually, both what the military can offer to them and what they can contribute to the military. And I think in a liberal democracy, there's always this tension because military service is voluntary, and as time has gone on, fewer and fewer people do serve in the military. And that means there's much less understanding of the military as an instrument in the broader population. And I think that really matters because that means people, when they vote, they don't have a deep understanding of what the political leaders are talking about and what they intend when the political leaders talk about what they want to do with the military. When political leaders say, oh, we should have a 5% increase in defense budget. And that sounds great. What is it for? And so it's not just spending the money, but what exactly are we spending it on and why? What's our strategic goal here? So I think the parade is an opportunity for people to think about what the military is doing for the United States and how it ought to be cared for and constrained and employed. And to think about those questions in a much deeper way, rather than just enjoying the spectacle, which they ought to enjoy, but it should raise some real questions about what the role of the military is in a liberal democracy.
And final question, parade and politics aside, what do you want to say about the 250th anniversary?
I think it's a really great occasion. It's a glorious occasion. It's an impressive fighting force, one of the greatest in the world. And I think people should be rightfully proud of all the things that the U.S. Army has achieved. And my great hope with not just this parade, but everything else that the Army is involved in the next few years is that it continues to uphold that fine tradition.
Well, thank you so much to our guest today, Yvonne Chu. You can read more of her thoughts and analysis at aei.org. Check out her book as well, Conspiring with the Enemy, The Ethic of Cooperation in Warfare, or grab her upcoming book when it's available called Iron Fist, Silk Glove, where she examines the evolution of authoritarianism in East Asia. Of course, we'll be updating you on what exactly happens at today's parade in the nation's capital and all the other news to know during our regular 10-minute daily updates next week. We keep you in the know every Monday through Friday. So we'll be back on Monday with the latest in politics, tech, entertainment, and more. Until then, enjoy the rest of your weekend.